On O'Reilly, the valuation story has been built around consistency. The market has repeatedly been willing to pay a premium because this is not just a retailer. It is a highly disciplined auto parts compounder with strong execution, resilient demand, and a long record of taking share in a fragmented market. In 2025, O'Reilly delivered record sales of $17.78 billion, comparable store sales growth of 4.7%, and its 33rd consecutive year of positive comps, which is exactly the kind of performance that supports a premium multiple. The big takeaway is that O'Reilly's upside does not depend on a flashy growth story. It comes from steady store expansion, healthy same-store sales, strong margins, and the ability to keep turning operational execution into per-share earnings growth. That is why the market usually rewards the stock when management proves the model is still working. For 2026, the company is guiding to 225 to 235 net new stores, revenue of $18.7 to $19.0 billion, comparable store sales growth of 3% to 5%, gross margin of 51.5% to 52.0%, and operating margin of 19.2% to 19.7%. But the risk is also clear. When a company is valued as a premium compounder, expectations stay high. If sales growth moderates, cost inflation pressures profitability, or the market starts questioning how much future share gain is left, the multiple can cool even if the business remains fundamentally strong. So from here, the bull case is simple: keep executing, keep expanding, and keep compounding. If O'Reilly does that, the valuation can stay elevated. If growth becomes just a little less exceptional, the stock can still feel pressure because so much quality is already priced in. O'Reilly's long-term revenue and profit trend is exactly what you want to see from a best-in-class retailer. Sales have compounded for years because the company keeps opening stores, taking share, and serving both DIY and professional customers well. What stands out today is that growth is still intact even at much larger scale. In 2025, revenue rose 6% to a record $17.78 billion, comparable store sales increased 4.7%, and diluted EPS rose 10%. So these are very strong numbers. The key opportunity is continued share gains in a fragmented market, while the main risk is simply that growth becomes a little less exceptional from here. These margins are outstanding for retail, and that is one of the main reasons O'Reilly gets a premium valuation. Gross margin staying around the low 50s tells you the company still has pricing discipline, strong sourcing, and a very efficient supply chain. Net margin in the mid-teens is also excellent for this industry. In 2025, gross margin was 51.6% and operating income margin was 19.2%, even while SG&A included pressure from higher medical and casualty claim costs. So the quality is still very high. The opportunity is continued scale efficiency, and the risk is that wage, healthcare, or other operating costs rise faster than revenue. This leverage profile is still manageable, but it is worth watching because O'Reilly uses debt and buybacks as part of its capital return model. The good news is that the business generates a lot of cash, and that keeps the balance sheet from becoming a real concern. In 2025, O'Reilly produced $2.8 billion of operating cash flow, had no borrowings under its revolving credit facility at year-end, and still repurchased $2.10 billion of stock. So debt is not the problem here. The bigger question is capital allocation. Can management keep balancing repurchases, store growth, and financial flexibility without becoming too aggressive? Let's go straight into the risks, because with O'Reilly, the question is not whether this is a high-quality business. It clearly is. The real question is whether a company already operating at a very high level can keep delivering the same mix of comp growth, margin strength, and share gains without any meaningful slowdown. In 2025, O'Reilly still posted 4.7% comparable store sales growth, but the detail matters. Transaction counts increased for professional customers and declined for DIY customers. That tells you the biggest risk in 2026 is not that the business suddenly breaks. It is that the softer part of the customer base stays soft for longer. That connects directly to the second risk: margin pressure from mix. O'Reilly's professional business is a major long-term opportunity, but it carries a lower gross margin than DIY. The company itself said 2025 gross margin benefited from improved acquisition costs and distribution efficiencies, but that benefit was partly offset by a greater percentage of sales coming from professional customers. So if commercial keeps growing faster than DIY, revenue can still look strong while margin expansion becomes harder. Another major risk is cost inflation. In 2025, SG&A as a percentage of sales increased principally because of broad inflationary pressure, especially medical and casualty insurance programs, along with higher store-level compensation and benefits. For a company valued as a premium compounder, this matters a lot. Even if sales remain solid, expense pressure can limit operating leverage and reduce how much of that growth drops to the bottom line. Competition is also real. O'Reilly says the aftermarket is highly competitive across customer service, product availability, store location, brand recognition, and price. That matters in both DIY and professional channels, and it means management has to keep investing in service, inventory, and distribution just to maintain its edge. Expansion itself also creates execution risk, with 225 to 235 net new stores planned for 2026. And finally, there are external swing factors. O'Reilly explicitly says unusually bad weather and natural disasters can reduce sales, particularly to DIY customers. Supplier disruption is another watch item, especially as offshoring and supplier consolidation can raise costs or create sourcing issues. Add in the fact that higher average borrowings already pushed 2025 interest expense higher, and you can see why even a great retailer is not risk-free. O'Reilly's 2026 risk is not collapse. It is the risk of a premium business facing slower DIY demand, higher cost pressure, and a little less margin upside than investors are used to. Now the opportunity side, because with O'Reilly this is not really a turnaround story. It is a market share and execution story. In the short term, the biggest opportunity is still the professional business. In 2025, O'Reilly said both average ticket and transaction count were positive on the professional side, while DIY transactions were softer. That matters because it shows the company is still winning where service, inventory depth, and delivery speed matter most. If that continues, O'Reilly can keep growing even if the consumer stays selective. Second is store growth and supply chain density. Management plans 225 to 235 net new stores in 2026, and that is important because O'Reilly's model gets stronger as its network gets denser. More locations, more hubs, and better parts availability improve service levels for both DIY and professional customers. In a business where speed and availability matter, that can translate directly into more share gains. Third is the underlying demand environment. O'Reilly continues to benefit from an aging vehicle fleet, and that is a very important tailwind because older vehicles typically need more maintenance and repair. That creates a durable demand backdrop that is less dependent on flashy consumer spending trends. The company also delivered its 33rd consecutive year of positive comparable store sales growth in 2025, which tells you this is not just cyclical luck, it is a proven operating model. Longer term, the biggest opportunity is still industry fragmentation. The auto parts aftermarket remains highly competitive and fragmented, and O'Reilly's scale gives it real advantages in sourcing, logistics, assortments, and customer service. That means the company does not need dramatic industry growth to keep compounding. It can keep taking a little more share year after year. And finally, capital allocation remains a major advantage. In 2025, O'Reilly generated about $2.8 billion of operating cash flow and repurchased about $2.10 billion of stock. That matters because the company can fund expansion and still shrink the share count, which supports long-term per-share earnings growth. So the upside framework is clear. Keep taking professional share, keep building density, let the aging car park support demand, and keep compounding through disciplined execution. Looking at analyst sentiment on O'Reilly, the message is clearly very positive. With 5 strong buys, 18 buys, 5 holds, 1 sell, and no strong sells, the street is basically saying this remains one of the highest quality retail compounders in the market. That makes sense, because analysts are looking at a company with a long track record of execution, resilient demand drivers, strong margins, and continued market share gains. O'Reilly does not need a dramatic turnaround or a brand new growth story. The bullish case is built on consistency, steady comparable sales, disciplined expansion, and strong per-share earnings growth over time. The hold ratings still matter though because they show some analysts are cautious about valuation and about whether future growth can stay as strong at this scale. And the 1-sell rating likely reflects that same concern. Not about business quality, but about how much perfection may already be priced in. So overall, this rating split says one thing very clearly. Analysts largely trust O'Reilly's model, and the debate is much more about valuation than about the strength of the business itself.